It's official. If you are the victim of a certain type of crime, it won't now be investigated by the police. The Met says it has no choice. It's the cuts. The force must save £400 million by 2020 at a time when 999 calls are up by 10%. They say it's not practical to investigate any theft under £50. But with crime on the rise, what message does that send to Londoners and to the criminals themselves? Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
To most people, the charity shop is a place to find a bargain and back a good cause. But to the shoplifter, it's just another target. This one, run by Scope in Camden, is robbed at least once a day. But the staff have given up calling the police because nothing is done.
It's depressing because we're trying to do good for the charity and help. And when we have these characters, which is on a regular basis, it's frustrating. We can't do anything about it.
Across the road, Anshul Majaria has just spent £250,000 doing up his opticians. The new look is irresistible to thieves.
We tend to have the usual. We have the police come in, provide us with the crime reference number, and they take a screenshot of CCTV, and then we don't seem to hear from them after that.
How frustrating is that?
Very. As the owner of a local business independent, we would like the police to support us a lot more.
Shoplifting is on a list of crimes downgraded by the Met as part of a cost-cutting exercise. Last week, the Mayor warned the number of police officers in London would soon fall below 30,000 for the first time in more than a decade. Scotland Yard's response is to prioritise resources. That means offences regarded as low-level crime, like shoplifting, car crime and criminal damage, will not be investigated. Can you understand why Londoners might feel they're being abandoned?
So I understand that this sounds as if we are doing less in terms of a number of these crimes. The message for Londoners is that when we have fewer officers and we have lots of money to save, we have to prioritise some things.
The move has been attacked by the organisation representing police officers, which fears victims will take the law into their own hands.
To a member of public, a crime's a crime, be it your windscreen mirror being smashed off or anything low level. It's still a crime. If you come out in the morning and find something like that's happened, you find it terrible and you want the police to act upon it. If we don't act upon these situations, then they'll start dealing with them themselves, and that's what we don't want.
But the Met, facing a £400 million black hole in its budget, believes it has no choice.
The timing of this isn't coincidental, is it?
No, just over a month from now, the Chancellor will deliver his autumn budget. And for months now, the Mayor and the Met have been warning of police station closures, fewer officers, and now this. The Met says it's had to find £600 million of savings since 2012 and will now have to find another £400 million by 2020. And unless the government comes up with more money, it has to find ways to balance the books. Things haven't been helped by the increased funding for counter-terrorism and, of course, complex investigations like the Grenfell Tower fire. But the Met says, despite all this, this doesn't amount to a crook's charter, because if there's evidence, even low-level crimes will be investigated, and certainly serious crimes will be. We asked to speak to a Home Office minister today, but there was no response, although the Home Office does maintain that there's more money spent per head of population on policing in London than anywhere else.
Simon Harris, thank you. It has been the deadliest year for attacks in London since the tube bombings in 2005. First Westminster, then London Bridge, Finsbury Park and Parsons Green, all targeted by terrorists. Now, in his first TV interview, the Director General of MI5 has said the organisation must shine the harsh light of hindsight on what they could have known and what they can learn. But Andrew Parker has warned they can't stop everything or know all that's being planned. Simon Harris has more.
Behind the stone-clad walls and anonymous windows of Thames House, the work of MI5 is shrouded in secrecy. Britain's security service is reluctant to share what it knows about the threat from terrorists. But in his first television interview today, MI5's Director General spoke about the challenge.
We simply can't stop everything. We can't know everything. We can't know what is in the heads of every single individual extremist. But we're doing absolutely everything we can. And this year, 7 attacks foiled by the work that we and the police do together.
Of all the attacks on London this year, London Bridge was the deadliest. 8 people died when 3 jihadis drove a van at pedestrians on the bridge and then used knives to attack people in Borough Market.
We are just saying we were praying, but they don't believe us.
Soon afterwards, the ringleader was identified as Kurram Butt, a 27-year-old man from Barking who once appeared in a documentary called The Jihadis Next Door. Despite that very brazen notoriety, Butt and his fellow killers were not spotted in time.
We've looked at all of the situation, every little bit of circumstance that we can find out about, using the harsh light of hindsight to shine on it. What could we have known? What was there? And what learning can we take?
So lessons are being learned, words of reassurance perhaps, but in a speech today, Mr Parker's warning was stark.
It's clear that we're contending with an intense UK terrorist threat from Islamist extremists. That threat is multidimensional, evolving rapidly, and operating at a scale and pace we've not seen before.
After a 4th attack this year at Parsons Green, it's a message Londoners understand all too well.
Well, Simon joins me now. Simon, what more does this tell us about the terror threat?
Well, we're used to hearing about the level of the terrorist threat. It's been raised twice this year to the highest level, but on both occasions was later downgraded. But Mr Parker was quite candid about where we are now. He talked about a dramatic upshift, more terrorist activity coming at us more quickly and at the highest tempo in his 34-year career at MI5. In the light of those attacks which did get through, he was also asked whether he regarded 2017 as a year of failure for MI5. But Mr Parker said he didn't want to characterise it that way because of those plots that were disrupted. But it is clear that there were some questions asked and some soul-searching at MI5 headquarters after that London Bridge attack in particular, where it did seem extraordinary that someone like Kurram Butt wasn't ringing alarm bells.
All right, Simon, thank you. Well, when Sadiq Khan's toxicity charge does come in on Monday, it will be the biggest road pricing revolution since Ken Livingstone introduced the congestion charge 14 years ago. It will affect drivers of the dirtiest diesels who will be hit with a £10 fee. But the Mayor doesn't want to stop at road traffic. He's also looking at wood-burning stoves, high-polluting bulldozers and, as our political correspondent Simon Harris reports, he even has London's canal boat community in his sights.
It's one way to escape the rat race. Canal life can seem like an idyllic existence in a busy capital city, about as close to nature as you can get in the urban jungle. But these floating homes are powered by diesel and heated by solid fuel, and that makes them a target for the Mayor's clean air crusade. Sadiq Khan wants greater powers to tackle pollution on London's canal network. For boat dwellers like trainee barrister Gerard PITT, the idea of being forced to buy a greener engine and stove fills him with alarm.
You couldn't use a canal boat in the winter without a wood-burning stove. I mean, it would set me back hundreds of pounds to install a different stove, and I don't even know what kind of stove it is that would satisfy Sadiq Khan, let alone an engine. I mean, engines would be thousands of pounds. A great number of boaters who simply wouldn't be able to afford it.
There are an estimated 4,000 canal boat homes in London. The body responsible for the waterways accepts there is a pollution problem.
Air pollution is an issue in London, and we'd like to play our part in that. But we do think canal boats make a very small contribution comparative to other forms of pollutants, and indeed to larger craft, freight barges, for example, using the Thames.
City Hall has floated the idea of emissions charges for the dirtiest marine diesels. Commercial boats already face tougher regulations than private vessels, but one operator worries about the cost to taxpayers of bringing everyone on the water into line.
There does need to be more control, certainly of pollution on the canals. The big problem, of course, is you bring in more regulations. There needs to be an enforcement of the regulations, which requires funding. It's a question of where that funding will come from.
For now, Sadiq Khan's canal ambitions are just that. Before he can tackle boat pollution, he must first persuade ministers to give him new powers. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Well, there'll be more on this with Simon on the late debate tonight, and he is in our Westminster studios now. So, Simon, what's in store?
Lucrezia, on the Late Debate tonight, we'll be discussing London's poor air quality with sometime canal boat dweller and Green Baroness Jenny Jones, former Transport Minister Stephen Hammond and Kensington MP Emma Dent-Coad. We'll also be talking to Labour's official Boris Baiter-in-Chief, Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry, and asking her if personal insults are all part of the political process.
I mean, he's very charming and he's fun. I think that he might be a bit more thin-skinned than I realised to begin with. But I think the truth is that he's not really interested in the Foreign Office. I'm sorry, but I don't think he is. I don't think he masters his brief. I don't think he knows the detail. I think that he's just got his sights set on number 10.
We'll also weigh up the Prime Minister's pledge to make solving the housing crisis her mission. Join me for the Late Debate here on ITV at the slightly later time of 11:15. Lucrezia.
Simon, thank you. We will be watching.